We usually act as if language is a direct link between a sound and an object, but in reality, words themselves refer to nothing. Reference is a pragmatic act. It is something people do, a process where a speaker uses a linguistic form to help a listener identify a specific entity. To achieve this, the speaker selects a referring expression. Whether they use a proper noun, a pronoun, or an indefinite phrase, that choice depends on what the speaker assumes the listener already knows about the context. This works through inference. Listeners analyze the speaker's intent to identify the target. Reference isn't about being objectively correct, but locally successful. If a secretary calls a delivery man Mr. Aftershave, the name is technically wrong, but the referent is perfectly clear to the room. Successful reference is collaborative. It requires both the speaker and the listener to think about what the other has in mind, to bridge the gap between language and reality. This collaborative model reveals an interesting quirk. Referring expressions do not actually require a physical, existing referent to function. We often use descriptions to identify entities we only know by their properties. If someone says they want to marry a woman with lots of money, they might simply mean whoever fits that description. This is known as an attributive use. We can see the difference using the phrase, the killer. If a news reporter says there was no sign of the killer, they are using the term attributively to mean whoever committed the crime. But if police are chasing a specific suspect who then escapes, the term becomes referential. The speaker has a specific, existing individual in mind. Speakers can even invite listeners to identify things that don't exist at all, like a 9-foot-tall basketball player or Santa Claus. Expressions possess no inherent referential power. They are invested with that power only by the speaker's intention within a specific moment. We often assume that proper names strictly identify people, and common nouns strictly identify things. But reference is far more flexible. If a student asks to borrow your Shakespeare, you don't look for a person, you look for a book on the table. We do the same in reverse. In a restaurant, a waiter might ask where the cheese sandwich is sitting. The name of an object is used to identify a human customer. This works because of conventional pragmatic connections established within a community, such as mapping a producer to the objects they created. We apply this rule to artists, composers, and musicians. We hang a Picasso on a wall, listen to the new Mozart, or search for a missing Rolling Stones record. These inferences rely on specific cultural associations shared by a group. When a listener successfully bridges the gap from a creator's name to an object, they confirm that they share the same socio-cultural background as the speaker. A referring expression by itself only provides a range of reference, a list of several possible targets. We narrow that range using cotext, the words surrounding the expression. As this diagram shows, the word Brazil changes its identity based on the text next to it, shifting from a soccer team to a national government. While cotext is linguistic, context is physical. It involves the immediate environment and the local speech conventions of the people in it. In a hospital, a nurse might say, "The heart attack mustn't be moved." This high-stakes environment allows a medical condition to successfully identify a human patient. Reference cannot be calculated in isolation. It is a localized act that depends entirely on the physical environment and the shared knowledge of the participants. In real-world conversation, we don't just refer once. We have to keep track of entities across multiple sentences. We do this through anaphora. The first time we mention a man, he is the antecedent. Every subsequent mention using a pronoun like he is the anaphor. However, anaphoric reference is rarely a perfect one-to-one match. The entity we are tracking can change its state. If a recipe tells you to slice 6 potatoes and then put them in water, them no longer refers to the original objects. You have to infer that the referent is now the 6 peeled and sliced potatoes. We can even reverse this pattern with cataphora, using the pronoun first to create a moment of suspense before revealing the full noun phrase. Maintaining reference over time shows that language processing is an active, updating cognitive task, rather than a static equation. Sometimes we use zero anaphora. We leave the expression out entirely, expecting the listener to identify the referent even when the words are missing. Listeners make these connections by relying on assumed knowledge of how the world is built. If you hear someone just rented a house and the kitchen is big, you automatically infer the link. This process is so automatic it can override grammar. We might say, "The bus came, but he didn't stop," referring to the driver through the vehicle without any confusion. Literal properties and grammatical agreement are secondary to the goal of identification. Reference succeeds because speakers select expressions assuming that listeners will collaborate to find the intended target. The ability to recognize an intended referent from minimal information indicates a deep baseline of shared knowledge. At its core, reference functions as a social bond, signaling the closeness and connection between two people.